The Chris Watts case, how a family man became a monster. Some killers don't wear masks, they wear wedding rings. They hold their children close, kiss their wives goodnight, and pose for family portraits with a smile that conceals unspeakable evil. Chris Watts was one of them. To the outside world, he was a doting father, a loving husband, a man blessed with a beautiful wife, 2 angelic daughters, and another child on the way. Their home in the quiet town of Frederick, Colorado, seemed like the perfect setting for a picture-perfect life. But what unfolded in the early hours of August 13th, 2018, shattered that illusion forever. This is not just the story of a murder. It's the story of betrayal so deep, of lies so cold, and of evil so quiet. It wore a smile until the very end. The mask of a happy family. Scroll through Shanann Watts' Facebook, and you'll find a life most would envy. Heartfelt posts about love and gratitude. Videos of her husband surprising her with gifts. Pictures of their daughters, 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste, playing joyfully in the backyard. In every frame, Chris Watts stood beside them, smiling. But what social media didn't show were the quiet tears, the long nights of confusion, the creeping fear that something was terribly wrong. Because behind the digital curtain, Chris was pulling away. Shanann noticed it first in the little things. He no longer said, "I love you." His hugs felt mechanical. His gaze drifted when she spoke. She texted her best friend Nicole, worried. "Something's off. He's not the same." She couldn't understand it until the truth came crashing down. The other woman, while Shanann was busy holding the family together, Chris was unraveling it from within. He wasn't working late. He wasn't tired from the stress of life. He was having an affair. Nichol Kessinger, a co-worker, became more than a secret. She became the fantasy, the new life, the fresh start. And in Chris's twisted mind, his family wasn't just an obstacle. They were disposable. He didn't ask for a divorce. He didn't move out. He plotted, quietly, coldly, and what he planned would horrify a nation. The night everything changed, August 13th, 2018, 1:48 a.m. Shanann stepped off a delayed flight and returned home from a work trip. Exhausted but hopeful, she sent one final text to a friend. "Chris and I need to talk." She walked through the front door. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. Later that morning, her friend Nicole sensed something wasn't right. Shanann wasn't answering calls. She missed a doctor's appointment. Her car was still in the garage. Her phone and purse sat untouched on the counter. The house was silent, too silent. And Shanann and her 2 daughters were nowhere to be found. The lie begins. Chris Watts appeared devastated. He went on local TV, his voice trembling. "Shanann, if you're out there, please come home." But something was off. His eyes were dry. His tone was hollow. His plea felt rehearsed. And then, the first slip. He referred to Shanann in the past tense. She was a great mom, police noticed. So did a neighbor, who had surveillance footage of Chris that morning, backing his truck into the driveway, loading it with something large. He wasn't a man in mourning. He was a man hiding something. Unraveling the truth, Chris's story kept changing. First, he claimed he left for work and came home to an empty house. Then, under pressure, he suggested Shanann had taken the girl somewhere. But surveillance footage told a different story, and so did his phone records. While the world searched for his missing wife and children, Chris was texting his mistress, booking romantic vacations, searching for secluded getaways. He never called the police for updates, never begged them to keep looking. Instead, he deleted messages and kept lying. But detectives had seen this before, and they were closing in. The moment the mask cracked at the police station, Chris sat still as stone, hands folded tightly. Detectives leaned in, pushing. "Chris, we know something happened. You need to tell us." And then he broke, but not with the truth. He claimed Shanann had hurt the girls, and in a panic, he retaliated. A desperate, final lie. Eventually, the weight of his deceit collapsed, and what he admitted next chilled investigators to the bone. The murders. Chris Watts confessed to strangling Shanann in their bedroom. As she fought for her life, 15 weeks pregnant, he looked into her eyes and took it away. Then, as his daughters cried out in fear and confusion, he did the unthinkable. He drove their tiny bodies, still in pajamas, to an oil field where he worked. There in the darkness, he smothered them both. Bella, the eldest, pleaded, "Daddy, no!" But Chris didn't stop. He buried Shanann in a shallow grave, and he dropped his daughters into massive crude oil tanks, hidden away like secrets. The arrest and aftermath. On August 15, 2018, Chris Watts was arrested. The nation recoiled in horror. How could a man kill his wife and daughters, his unborn son, for a fling? He became the face of evil, not the kind that storms into a room with rage and fury, but the kind that smiles, that tucks children into bed, that whispers, "I love you," while planning their end. Why did he do it? Why would a man destroy everything he once called his world? That's the question that echoed in every news report, every courtroom whisper, and every conversation among those who followed the case. Why would Chris Watts, a father, a husband, a man with a seemingly perfect life, kill his pregnant wife and two innocent daughters? At first, he claimed it was the collapse of a marriage, that the love had faded, that he felt suffocated. He said he wanted out, but most broken marriages end in separation, not slaughter. The truth was far more sinister. Chris Watts wasn't a man who snapped. He was a man who planned. He had fallen into an affair with Nichol Kessinger, a relationship that became his obsession. With her, he felt young, free, unburdened by fatherhood and responsibility. She represented a clean slate, a second chance at happiness. But instead of facing the shame of divorce, the discomfort of confrontation, or the challenge of co-parenting, Chris began to see his own family as disposable. To him, Shanann wasn't his partner. She was a barrier. Bella and Celeste weren't his daughters. They were anchors to a life he wanted to escape. Psychologists who later analyzed the case pointed to signs of narcissism and emotional detachment. Chris lacked empathy. He craved admiration. He wanted to be seen as the good guy, even while plotting the ultimate betrayal. He didn't want to be the villain in anyone's eyes. So he crafted a fantasy, one where he could erase his past without consequence. No custody battles, no messy divorce, no damaged reputation, just silence. So in a cold and calculated move, he decided to eliminate the very people who loved him the most. And even after their deaths, Chris showed no signs of regret. He gave interviews. He went to work. He lied over and over, as if he believed he could bury the truth along with the bodies. He didn't just want freedom. He wanted a life where his sins didn't exist. In the end, Chris Watts didn't kill out of rage or impulse. He killed out of selfishness. He destroyed his family to build a fantasy, one soaked in blood and sealed with betrayal. The legacy of the Watts family today: Chris Watts sits behind bars, serving 5 life sentences without parole. He will die in prison, but the story doesn't end with him. Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and unborn baby Nico are remembered not for the way they died, but for how they lived. Shanann, vibrant, kind, and fiercely loving. Bella and Celeste, pure, joyful, and innocent. Nico never got the chance. Their names live on in the hearts of millions who followed this case, and in the warning it gives us. Not all monsters hide in the dark. Some live in plain sight, smiling, pretending, planning. Final thought. The Chris Watts case isn't just a story of murder. It's a chilling reminder that evil can wear a friendly face, that danger can live in the person you trust the most. It reminds us to look beyond the pictures, beyond the smiles, and to never ignore the quiet signals that something isn't right, because sometimes the most terrifying horror stories are the ones that happen in real life. Candle for Shanann, for Bella, for Celeste, for Nico. May their names never be forgotten. If this story gripped you, make sure to hit the like button. It helps us bring more cases like this to light. And if you want more real-life stories that expose the darkest sides of humanity, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. You never know which face might be hiding the next chilling secret.